I'm Elena. I'm 29 years old, and until 6 months ago, I thought I was living the dream. I had a beautiful home in the suburbs of Phoenix, a career I loved as a pediatric nurse, and a husband who seemed absolutely devoted to me. Michael was attentive, caring, always worried about my health, my stress levels, my well-being. Every night before bed, he'd bring me a cup of chamomile tea with honey, kiss me on the forehead, and tell me how much he loved me. That nightly ritual, that simple act of love I thought it was, turned out to be the most horrifying thing that's ever happened to me. For 18 months, I drank that tea. For 18 months, I trusted him completely. And for 18 months, I had no idea what he was really doing to me while I slept. The night I pretended to drink that tea, the night I finally stayed awake, I discovered something so twisted, so evil, that it shattered every belief I had about the man I married, about trust, about love itself. Before I tell you what I found, I need you to do something for me. If you're watching this right now, please hit that subscribe button. Hit the like button. Because this story, as horrifying as it is, needs to reach as many people as possible. If it happened to me, a healthcare professional who thought she knew all the warning signs, it can happen to anyone. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is. I read every single one, and knowing I'm not alone in sharing this helps me heal. Trust me when I say you're going to want to hear this entire story, from beginning to end, because what I discovered was worse than anything I could have imagined. Let me take you back to the beginning, to when everything seemed perfect. I met Michael 4 years ago at a hospital fundraiser. I was there representing the pediatric ward, and he was there with his tech company, which had donated a significant amount to the children's wing. He approached me during the cocktail hour, introduced himself, and we talked for 3 hours straight. He was charming, successful, kind. He asked thoughtful questions about my work with sick children, seemed genuinely moved by the stories I shared. By the end of the night, he'd asked for my number, and I gave it to him without hesitation. Our courtship was like something out of a romantic movie. He took me to nice restaurants, surprised me with flowers at work, remembered every little detail I mentioned in passing. When I told him I'd always wanted to visit Sedona, he planned an entire weekend trip there. When I mentioned loving old bookstores, he found a rare first edition of my favorite novel. He seemed perfect. Absolutely perfect. My friends loved him. My parents adored him. My colleagues at the hospital would joke about how lucky I was to have found someone so attentive and caring. We got married 2 years after we met. The wedding was beautiful, exactly what I'd always dreamed of. Small, intimate, just close family and friends at a vineyard outside of Phoenix. Michael cried during his vows. He promised to cherish me, protect me, love me through everything. I believed every word. Why wouldn't I? He'd never given me a single reason to doubt him. The first year of marriage was wonderful. We bought a house together in a quiet suburban neighborhood, the kind of place with tree-lined streets and neighbors who actually knew each other's names. I loved my job at the hospital, working with children, helping them through illness and injury. Michael's tech company was doing well, and he mostly worked from home, which meant we got to spend a lot of time together. We'd cook dinner together, watch movies, talk about our days. It felt like I'd finally found my person, my home, my future. The tea ritual started about 6 months into our marriage. I'd been having trouble sleeping, nothing serious, just the kind of restlessness that sometimes comes with shift work at the hospital. I'd mentioned it to Michael one evening, just casually, not complaining really, just sharing. That night, he brought me a cup of chamomile tea with honey before bed. He said chamomile was a natural sleep aid, that it would help me relax without any of the grogginess that comes with sleep medication. It was sweet. It was thoughtful. It tasted good, slightly sweet from the honey, with that distinctive chamomile flavor. I drank it, thanked him, kissed him goodnight, and fell asleep within 20 minutes. I slept deeply that night, more deeply than I had in weeks. When I woke up, I felt rested, refreshed, ready for my shift at the hospital. I didn't think anything of it. Why would I? My husband had made me tea to help me sleep better. It was a kind gesture, nothing more. But Michael kept making the tea. Every single night, without fail, he'd bring me that cup of chamomile tea with honey about 30 minutes before bed. He'd sit with me while I drank it, asking about my day, telling me about his. Sometimes he'd rub my feet while I sipped the tea. Sometimes he'd just hold my hand. It became our ritual, our special time together at the end of each day. I loved it. I loved him for caring so much about my well-being. Looking back now, I can see when things started to change. It was subtle at first, so subtle I barely noticed. I started having gaps in my memory, small ones. Michael would mention conversations we'd had, and I'd have no recollection of them. He'd say, "Remember when you told me we should replace the kitchen cabinets?" Or, "You said you wanted to plan a trip to San Diego next month." And I'd just stare at him, confused because I had absolutely no memory of saying those things. At first, I brushed it off. I work long shifts at the hospital, 12 hours on my feet, dealing with sick children and worried parents. Of course, I was tired. Of course, I might forget minor conversations. Michael would laugh it off too, tell me I was working too hard, that I needed to take better care of myself. He'd make the tea even more religiously after that, insisting it would help me de-stress, help me sleep better, help me remember things more clearly when I was well rested. But the memory gaps got worse. I started forgetting entire evenings. Michael would show me photos on his phone, pictures of us having dinner out at restaurants I didn't remember going to. Pictures of me smiling, laughing, looking happy. But I had no memory of those moments, none at all. It was like looking at photos of a stranger who happened to look exactly like me. Then came the exhaustion. God, the exhaustion. I'd sleep for 9, sometimes 10 hours a night, and wake up feeling like I'd been drugged. My body felt heavy, my mind foggy. I'd stumble through my morning routine in a daze, drinking coffee after coffee just to feel remotely alert. My colleagues at the hospital started noticing. One of the other nurses, Rebecca, pulled me aside one day and asked if I was okay. She said I seemed off, distracted, like I wasn't fully present. I told her I was just tired, that I wasn't sleeping well. She suggested I see a doctor. I made an appointment with my primary care physician, Dr. Sanders. I told her about the exhaustion, the memory gaps, the feeling of being in a fog. She ran blood work, checked my thyroid, tested for anemia, vitamin deficiencies, everything. Everything came back normal, perfectly, frustratingly normal. She suggested it might be stress-related, that maybe I was experiencing burnout from work. She recommended I consider reducing my hours at the hospital, maybe take a vacation. She offered to prescribe a low-dose anti-anxiety medication if I thought it would help. Michael was with me at that appointment. He held my hand, nodded along with everything Dr. Sanders said, promised he'd help me reduce my stress at home. After we left, he was even more insistent about the nightly tea. He said it was clearly helping, that without it, I'd probably be even worse off. He started bringing it to me earlier in the evening, sometimes as early as 8 o'clock. And I drank it, every single night, trusting that my husband was trying to help me, trying to take care of me. The bruises started appearing around month 14 of the tea ritual. Small ones at first, on my upper arms, my thighs, places that were usually covered by clothing. I noticed them one morning while getting dressed for work, and my blood ran cold. They looked like fingerprints, like someone had grabbed me hard enough to leave marks. I went to Michael immediately, showed him the bruises, asked him if he knew where they came from. His reaction seemed perfect at the time. He was concerned, worried, examining the bruises carefully. He asked if I'd bumped into anything at work, if maybe I'd helped move a patient and injured myself without realizing it. I told him I didn't think so, that I would remember something like that. He suggested maybe it was the anemia test result being wrong, that maybe I should get retested. He made me another doctor's appointment, drove me there himself, sat in the waiting room while I got examined again. More blood work, more tests. Still, everything normal. The doctor suggested I might be bruising easily due to stress, that sometimes chronic stress can cause physical symptoms, like easy bruising. She prescribed vitamin K supplements, told me to monitor the situation, and to come back if the bruising got worse. Michael filled the prescription that same day, made sure I took the supplements religiously. And still, the bruises kept appearing. My clothes started bothering me too. I'd go to bed wearing my favorite pajamas, soft cotton pants, and a tank top, and wake up in completely different clothes. Sometimes in a nightgown I barely remembered owning. Sometimes in just a t-shirt. Sometimes in clothes that weren't even mine. At first, I thought maybe I was changing in the middle of the night and not remembering it. Maybe the exhaustion was so severe I was essentially sleepwalking. But then I started finding my clothes not where I'd left them. I'd take off my work scrubs and put them in the hamper before showering. Then, after my shower, they'd be folded neatly on the bed. Or I'd leave my phone on the bathroom counter while showering and find it on the nightstand when I came out. Small things, insignificant things, but they added up. Someone was moving my things while I slept. Someone was changing my clothes while I was unconscious. I tried to tell myself I was being paranoid. Michael worked from home. He was probably just being helpful, tidying up while I slept. But there was something about it that felt wrong. Invasive, like my privacy was being violated in ways I couldn't quite articulate. I tried talking to Michael about it, casually, not wanting to accuse him of anything. I mentioned that I kept waking up in different clothes, that it was strange, unsettling. He looked at me with such concern, such genuine worry in his eyes. He said maybe I should talk to Dr. Sanders about it again, that maybe the exhaustion and memory gaps were worse than we thought. He suggested I might be experiencing some kind of sleep disorder, maybe even early onset of something neurological. He said it with such care, such love, that I felt guilty for even mentioning it. Here was my husband, trying so hard to help me, and I was essentially questioning his motives. Rebecca at work was the first person to really voice concern beyond just asking if I was okay. We were on break one afternoon, sitting in the nurse's lounge, and she asked me point blank if everything was all right at home. I told her everything was fine, that Michael was wonderful, supportive, caring. She looked at me for a long moment, then said something I'll never forget. She said, "Elena, I've known you for 3 years. You used to be sharp, focused, one of the best nurses in pediatrics. For the past year, you've been deteriorating. You forget things. You seem sedated half the time. You have bruises you can't explain. If one of your patients presented with these symptoms, what would you think?" Her words hit me like a physical blow. She was right. If I saw a patient, especially a child, with unexplained exhaustion, memory gaps, bruising, and changes in behavior, I'd be mandated to report suspected abuse. I'd be looking for signs of someone hurting that child, drugging that child, violating that child's safety. But somehow, when it was happening to me, I'd been explaining it away, making excuses, trusting the very person who might be causing it. I went home that night with Rebecca's words echoing in my head. I looked at Michael differently for the first time in our entire relationship. Really looked at him. He was making dinner when I got home, smiling, asking about my day like always. He seemed so normal, so loving, so devoted. How could this man who'd cried during our wedding vows, who brought me tea every night to help me sleep, who made doctor's appointments for me and held my hand through them, how could he be hurting me? But I couldn't shake Rebecca's question. What would I think if I saw these symptoms in a patient? I'd think someone was drugging them. Someone was accessing them while they were unconscious. Someone was harming them in ways they couldn't defend against or even remember. That night, when Michael brought me my tea, I looked at it differently. Really looked at it. It was the same as always, chamomile tea in my favorite mug, honey swirled in, the steam rising gently. Michael sat next to me on the couch, put his arm around me, kissed my temple. "Drink up, sweetheart," he said softly. "You look exhausted. This'll help you sleep." I brought the mug to my lips. I smelled the chamomile, the honey, the familiar comforting scent. And for the first time in 18 months, I didn't drink it. I pretended to take a sip, but kept my lips closed, let the liquid touch them but not enter my mouth. Then I lowered the mug and smiled at Michael. "Thank you, baby. You always take such good care of me." He smiled back, kissed my forehead, and went back to watching the TV. I sat there holding that mug, pretending to drink from it every few minutes, while my heart pounded so hard I was sure he could hear it. After about 20 minutes, I pretended to yawn, told Michael I was exhausted and heading to bed early. He nodded, told me he'd be up in a bit, that he just wanted to finish the episode of the show he was watching. In the bedroom, I poured the tea into a water bottle I kept on my nightstand, making sure to get every drop. Then I rinsed out the mug in the bathroom sink, dried it, and placed it on the nightstand like I always did after finishing the tea. I changed into my pajamas, my favorite soft cotton pants and tank top, and got into bed. Then I waited. The exhaustion I usually felt after drinking the tea didn't come. The heavy, pulling sensation that made my eyelids droop and my thoughts scatter. It wasn't there. For the first time in 18 months, I was lying in bed at night, fully alert, fully conscious, fully aware, and I was terrified. Michael came to bed about 30 minutes later. He checked on me, leaned over me, waved his hand in front of my face. I kept my breathing deep and even, my eyes closed, my body perfectly still. He seemed satisfied that I was asleep because he went to the bathroom, came back, got into bed next to me. I felt him settle in, heard his breathing even out. I waited, every muscle in my body tense, my mind racing. At 11:47 p.m., I'll never forget the exact time, because I could see the clock on Michael's nightstand through my barely open eyes. He got out of bed. Slowly, quietly, like he was trying not to wake me. He left the bedroom, closing the door silently behind him. I waited a full minute, counting the seconds in my head before I moved. I slipped out of bed as quietly as possible. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely turn the doorknob. I opened the bedroom door just a crack, just enough to see into the hallway. Michael wasn't there. I could hear sounds from downstairs, movement in his home office. I crept down the hallway, staying close to the wall where the floorboards were less likely to creak, moving inch by inch toward the stairs. From the top of the stairs, I could see light coming from under Michael's office door. I heard him talking, his voice low but audible. I moved down the stairs, one at a time, testing each step before putting my full weight on it. It took me almost 5 minutes to get down those stairs, 5 minutes of barely breathing, of praying he wouldn't come out and find me. I made it to the office door. It was slightly ajar, just enough that I could see inside without pushing it further open. And what I saw made my blood run cold. Michael was sitting at his computer, but not working, not doing anything remotely normal. His screen showed multiple windows open, video feeds, 4 of them arranged in a grid. I could see our bedroom from 2 different angles, the bathroom from another angle, and what looked like a changing room or closet from the 4th. Cameras. He had cameras hidden throughout our house, pointed at me, recording me. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the second monitor, the one showing what looked like a website. I couldn't see all the details from where I was standing, but I could see enough. My face, my body. Photos and videos of me sleeping, changing, showering. And text next to the images, descriptions, comments, what looked like transaction records. Michael was on the phone, talking quietly. "Yeah, tonight's session is in about 20 minutes. Premium subscribers only, like I told you. She's been out for about an hour, should be good for another 6 or 7. The T-dose is pretty reliable." He laughed, actually laughed. "No, man, she has no idea. Thinks she's just tired from work. I've been doing this for over a year now. She trusts me completely." I felt like I was going to vomit. I felt like my entire world was collapsing inward, crushing me. The man I loved, the man I'd married, the man who brought me tea every night and told me he loved me, had been drugging me for 18 months and recording me, and apparently selling access to those recordings to other people. I somehow made it back upstairs without making a sound, though I don't remember how. My body was on autopilot, moving through pure adrenaline and shock. I got back into the bedroom, back into bed, pulled the covers over myself and tried to keep breathing. Tried to keep my mind from shattering completely. Michael came back to the bedroom at 12:15. I heard him open the door, felt him come to my side of the bed. He did something I didn't understand at first, adjusted something above the bed, then moved around to the other side. When he got back into bed, he didn't lie down. He sat there, and I could feel him watching me. After a few minutes, he started touching me. Nothing sexual, which somehow made it worse. He moved my arm, positioned it differently, adjusted my hair, tilted my head slightly. He was posing me like I was a doll, arranging me for the cameras I now knew were hidden in our bedroom. I had to fight every instinct to scream, to fight back, to demand answers. But I couldn't. If he knew I was awake, if he knew, I had no idea what he would do. After he finished arranging me to his satisfaction, he got up again and left the room. I heard him go back downstairs. I lay there in that bed, the bed I'd shared with him for 2 years, and tried to process what was happening. He was broadcasting me, live streaming me, based on what he'd said on the phone. People were watching me right now, watching me lie in bed, drugged and unconscious, or at least thinking I was drugged and unconscious. I didn't sleep at all that night. I couldn't. I stayed frozen in position, not wanting to move in case the cameras would catch it, in case Michael would know I was awake. Around 3 a.m., he came back to bed. He checked on me again, seemed satisfied I was still asleep, and finally settled in himself. I listened to him breathing, this man I thought I knew, this monster I'd been living with, and felt my entire sense of reality disintegrate. When morning came, Michael's alarm went off at 7, like always. He got up, stretched, went to the bathroom. I pretended to wake up slowly, groggily, like I was emerging from a deep sleep. I put on the same confused, exhausted expression I'd been wearing every morning for the past 18 months. Michael came over, kissed my forehead, asked how I slept. "Like the dead," I said, and watched his face for any sign of guilt, any indication that he understood the irony of those words. Nothing. He just smiled, said he was glad the tea was helping, and told me he'd make breakfast while I got ready for work. I went through the motions of my morning routine, but everything felt different. I looked for the cameras I now knew were there. In the bedroom, I spotted one hidden in the smoke detector, another in the digital clock on the dresser. In the bathroom, one in the exhaust fan vent. I couldn't see all of them, but I knew they were there, watching me, recording me, broadcasting me to God knows who. At the hospital that day, I couldn't focus on anything. I went through my shift on autopilot, my mind spinning with what I'd discovered, trying to figure out what to do. I couldn't go to the police yet, not without evidence. It would be my word against his, and I had no proof. The tea was gone, poured into a water bottle that I'd brought with me to work. I had that at least, but I needed more. During my lunch break, I called Rebecca. I asked her if she could recommend someone, a private investigator maybe, someone who could help me document what was happening. She heard something in my voice that made her take me seriously immediately. She gave me a name, a woman named Sarah Mitchell, who'd worked with the hospital before on suspected abuse cases. I called Sarah from the hospital parking lot. I told her everything, the tea, the memory gaps, the bruises, what I'd seen the night before. She listened without interrupting, and when I finished, she said 4 words that saved my life. Don't go back alone. We met at a coffee shop after my shift ended. Sarah was in her 50s, former police detective turned private investigator with sharp eyes that missed nothing. I showed her the water bottle with the tea, told her everything in more detail. She said the first step was getting the tea tested, finding out what he'd been putting in it. The second step was documenting everything in his office, the cameras, the website, whatever system he was using. But I can't just walk in there, I said. He'll know something's wrong. He always knows when I'm acting differently. Sarah nodded. Then we don't give him a reason to suspect anything. Tonight, you drink the tea like normal. But first, we wire you. She gave me a tiny camera, smaller than a button, that I could hide on myself. She showed me how to activate it, how to position it so it would record without being obvious. The plan was simple. Drink the tea, pretend to fall asleep, but position myself so the camera could capture Michael's office if he left the door open. And the tea, the real tea from tonight. I'd collect it the same way I'd done the night before, so we'd have multiple samples to test. I went home that evening with the camera hidden in my bra. Michael greeted me like always, asked about my day, told me he'd ordered takeout for dinner since I looked exhausted. We ate together, watched TV together, everything perfectly normal on the surface. And then, like clockwork, at 8:30, he brought me the tea. Here you go, sweetheart. This'll help you relax after a long shift. I took the mug, smiled at him, thanked him for always taking such good care of me. And just like the night before, I pretended to drink it, keeping the liquid from actually entering my mouth, letting it just touch my lips. After 20 minutes of fake sipping, I told him I was going to bed early. He kissed me goodnight, told me he'd be up soon. In the bedroom, I poured the tea into another water bottle, hid it in my work bag. Then I positioned myself on the bed, angling my body so the tiny camera hidden in my tank top would face the door. And I waited. Michael came in around 9:30, did his check to make sure I was unconscious, then left. I heard him go downstairs. I heard his office door close. And then I lay there, recording whatever the camera could catch, while my husband did God knows what, in his office, with his computers and cameras, and paying viewers. He came back around midnight. Once again, he arranged me, positioning my body like I was a mannequin, adjusting my clothes, my hair, making sure I looked perfect for his audience. The tiny camera captured all of it, his face, his actions, the calculated way he moved my unconscious body, or what he thought was my unconscious body. I collected that camera footage and the second tea sample the next morning, met with Sarah before my shift at the hospital. She sent the tea samples to a lab she worked with regularly, one that specialized in forensic toxicology. The results came back 2 days later. Rohypnol, the date rape drug, mixed with a heavy dose of diphenhydramine, an antihistamine that causes drowsiness. He'd been dosing me with enough sedative every night to knock me unconscious for hours, to make me so groggy the next day that I couldn't function properly, couldn't question what was happening, couldn't remember things clearly. Sarah also analyzed the footage from the button camera. She enhanced it, zoomed in on what we could see of Michael's computer screens through the office door. We could see enough to identify that he was running a subscription-based website, that he had multiple camera feeds throughout the house, that he was charging people for access to watch me sleep, watch me change, watch me shower. The timestamps on his screen showed he'd been doing this for over a year. But Sarah said what we had, while damning, wasn't quite enough yet. We needed more concrete evidence, particularly of the website itself, the subscriber list, the financial records. We needed to get into his office, into his computers, document everything. and we needed to do it in a way that would hold up in court. That's when Sarah brought in someone else, a cybersecurity expert named David. He explained that he could clone Michael's hard drives remotely if we could get him physical access to the office for about 30 minutes. The plan was risky, but it was our best shot at getting ironclad evidence. We decided to do it on a Saturday afternoon when Michael usually went to the gym. I would stay home, complain of not feeling well, so it wouldn't seem suspicious that I wasn't going out. Once Michael left, I'd let David and Sarah in. They'd clone the drives, photograph everything in the office, document the camera locations throughout the house. We'd have everything we needed to go to the police. That Saturday came, and I was so nervous I could barely function. I told Michael I had a bad headache, that I thought I might be coming down with something, that I was going to stay home and rest. He was concerned, offered to stay home with me, but I insisted he go to the gym like usual, that I'd be fine. I just needed to sleep it off. He left at noon. The moment his car pulled out of the driveway, I texted Sarah. She and David were there within 5 minutes, parked down the street, waiting to make sure Michael wasn't coming back. Then they came in through the back door, moving quickly and efficiently. I showed them to Michael's office. The door was locked, but I'd lifted his keys while he was in the shower that morning, made copies, put them back without him noticing. Sarah picked the office lock in about 30 seconds, and then we were in. What we found was so much worse than I'd imagined. Michael had files going back 3 years, from before we were even married. Photos of me from when we were dating, candid shots I'd never known he was taking, videos from cameras I'd never known existed. He'd been documenting me, cataloging me, studying me from almost the moment we met. The website was professional, well-designed. It had tiers of membership. Basic subscribers could watch archived footage. Premium subscribers got live access to multiple camera feeds. VIP subscribers could request specific camera angles, specific times, could essentially direct what they wanted to see. He'd made over $300,000 in the past 18 months from this. $300,000 from selling access to his unconscious wife. David worked quickly, connecting drives to Michael's computers, cloning everything. Sarah photographed everything, the hard drives, the papers on Michael's desk detailing his subscriber counts and income, the schedule he kept of when he drugged me and when he broadcast me, handwritten notes about which positions and angles got the most views. We found the cameras too, 11 of them throughout the house, bedroom, bathroom, closet, hallway, living room, kitchen. Everywhere I might be, he had cameras watching. Sarah photographed each one in place, documented their locations. We were finishing up, David disconnecting his equipment when we heard it. A car in the driveway. Michael was home early. Sarah grabbed my arm. Back door, now! David was still packing up his equipment. Sarah practically dragged me toward the back of the house. We heard Michael's key in the front door. We heard him call out, "Elena? Honey, I'm home early. I forgot my water bottle." Sarah and David went out the back door silently. I ran to the bedroom, dove into bed, pulled the covers up. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would burst out of my chest. I heard Michael's footsteps on the stairs, heard him coming down the hallway. He opened the bedroom door slowly, peeked in. I kept my eyes closed, my breathing deep and even, pretending to sleep. After a moment, he closed the door quietly and went back downstairs. I heard him moving around, heard the front door open and close. He'd gotten whatever he came back for and left again. I lay there shaking for a solid 5 minutes before I could move. Then I grabbed my phone and called Sarah. She and David were already at the police station, she told me. They had everything. The cloned hard drives, the photographs, the drug test results on the T. It was time to bring in law enforcement. I met them at the police station an hour later. A detective named Martinez listened to everything, watched Sarah's footage, reviewed David's findings. His face got harder and harder as he went through it all. When he finished, he looked at me and said, "Ma'am, what your husband has done is multiple felonies. drugging you, recording you without consent, distributing those recordings for profit. We're talking years in prison. We need to move on this immediately. They had me give a formal statement, walking through everything from the beginning. The tea ritual, the memory gaps, the exhaustion, the bruises, the night I stayed awake, what I'd seen. It took 3 hours to get through it all. By the time we finished, they had warrants for Michael's arrest, for a search of our house, for seizure of all his computer equipment. Detective Martinez said they'd execute the warrants that evening. He asked if I had somewhere safe to stay, said I shouldn't be there when they arrested Michael. I told him I could stay with Rebecca, my colleague from the hospital. He nodded, said that was good, that I should pack a bag and not come back until they called me. I went home one last time while Michael was still out. I packed clothes, documents, the water bottles with the tea samples, anything I thought I might need. I walked through that house, the house I'd thought was my home, and saw it for what it really was. A prison, a stage, a place where I'd been violated every single day for 18 months while unconscious, unable to protect myself, unable to even know what was being done to me. I left before Michael got back, went to Rebecca's house, told her everything. She held me while I cried, the first real tears I'd shed through this whole nightmare. I'd been so focused on gathering evidence, on building the case, on staying functional and logical and strategic. But now that it was out of my hands, now that the police were involved, the full weight of what had happened hit me. My husband had drugged me every single night for 18 months. He'd recorded me, sold access to me, made hundreds of thousands of dollars from my unconscious body. He'd violated me in ways I was still trying to comprehend, and he'd done it all while looking me in the eye every morning, kissing me, telling me he loved me. The police arrested Michael at 8 p.m. that night. Detective Martinez called me at 8:45 to let me know. He said Michael had been shocked when they showed up, had tried to deny everything, but they had all the evidence. They'd seized his computers, his cameras, his files. He was being charged with drugging a person without consent, unlawful surveillance, distribution of intimate images without consent, and about a dozen other charges. He was looking at 20 years minimum. I couldn't go back to that house. Rebecca let me stay with her for a few days while I figured out what to do. The detective said the house was technically a crime scene, that they needed to process it fully, photograph everything, collect evidence. But even after they cleared it, I knew I'd never live there again. I couldn't sleep in that bedroom, shower in that bathroom, exist in those spaces knowing what had happened there. My lawyer, a woman named Jennifer Cho, who specialized in cases like mine, helped me file for an emergency restraining order. Michael wasn't allowed to contact me, wasn't allowed within 500 feet of me. She also started divorce proceedings immediately, arguing that the marriage contract was void given the criminal nature of Michael's actions. The news broke 3 days after his arrest. Local tech entrepreneur arrested for drugging wife and running illegal live stream, the headlines read. My name wasn't published, thank God, but Michael's was. His photo was plastered across every local news site, every newspaper. The story went national within a week. Tech entrepreneur, sophisticated recording setup, hundreds of paying subscribers. Over a year of systematic abuse. Michael's tech company dropped him immediately, scrubbed him from their website. His colleagues gave interviews talking about how shocked they were, how he'd seemed so normal, so professional. His family called me, his parents, his sister, all expressing shock and horror. His mother cried, said she was so sorry, that she never would have imagined her son was capable of something like this. But the worst part, the absolute worst part, was learning about the extent of what he'd done. The police analysis of his hard drives showed he'd been recording me from the very beginning of our relationship. Before we were married, when I'd stay over at his apartment, he'd had cameras there too. Every intimate moment we'd shared, every vulnerable moment, he'd been recording it, cataloging it, studying it. He'd been planning this from the start. The courtship, the marriage, the house, the nightly tea ritual, all of it had been calculated, planned, designed to give him access to record me, to profit from me, to violate me in the worst possible way while making me think he loved me. The trial took 8 months. 8 months of my life consumed by depositions, testimony, evidence review. 8 months of having to relive every moment, describe every detail, explain to strangers what it felt like to discover that your entire marriage was a lie, that the man you loved saw you as a product to be sold. I had to testify for 2 full days. Michael's lawyer tried to suggest I'd known about the recordings, that I'd consented to them, that this was some kind of misunderstanding. But the evidence was overwhelming. The drugs in the tea, the cameras hidden throughout the house, the website with paying subscribers, the financial records showing over $300,000 in income from selling access to me, the handwritten notes in Michael's own handwriting detailing his dosing schedule, his broadcast schedule, his subscriber management system. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. 4 hours that felt like 4 years. When they came back, they found him guilty on every count. Every single one. The sentencing hearing was 2 weeks later. I gave a victim impact statement. I stood in front of that courtroom and looked Michael in the eye, really looked at him, maybe for the first time since discovering the truth. And I told him exactly what he'd taken from me. You took 18 months of my life. You took my ability to trust. You took my sense of safety in my own home, in my own body. You made me doubt my own sanity, my own memory, my own worth. You violated me in ways I'm still trying to understand, ways I may never fully understand. You looked me in the eye every single morning and told me you loved me while you were profiting from my unconscious body. Michael cried. He had the audacity to sit there and cry, like he was the victim. His lawyer had probably told him to show remorse. But I didn't care about his tears. They meant nothing. But here's what you didn't take, I continued. You didn't take my strength. You didn't take my ability to survive. You didn't take my determination to make sure you pay for what you did, and to make sure no one else ever has to go through what I went through. I'm still here. I'm still standing. And you're the one in handcuffs. The judge sentenced him to 25 years in prison. No possibility of parole for at least 15 years. He'd also have to register as a sex offender for the rest of his life. When he got out, if he got out, he'd be in his 50s, and everyone would know what he was. It wasn't enough. No amount of prison time could undo what he'd done, could give me back those 18 months, could restore my sense of trust and safety. But it was something. It was justice. As much justice as the legal system could provide. The divorce was finalized 3 months after the criminal trial ended. I got everything. The house, though I sold it immediately. His retirement accounts, his savings, everything. My lawyer argued successfully that everything he had was built on profits from his abuse of me, and the judge agreed. I donated most of the money to organizations that help victims of domestic abuse and sexual violence. I kept enough to pay off my student loans, to move to a new city, to start over. I moved to Seattle, as far from Phoenix as I could get while staying on the West Coast. New city, new hospital, new life. I still work as a pediatric nurse. I'm good at my job. I love helping children, helping families through difficult times. But I'm different now. I'm more cautious. I'm more suspicious. I question things I never would have questioned before. I'm in therapy. Twice a week, sometimes more when the nightmares get bad. PTSD, my therapist says. From the prolonged abuse, from the violation, from the complete destruction of my ability to trust. We work on it. We work on me being able to sleep without fear. We work on me being able to be in a room without scanning for cameras. We work on me being able to trust that not everyone is hiding something sinister behind a kind smile. It's been 2 years now since that night I pretended to drink the tea. 2 years since my world shattered. I'm healing, slowly. I've started dating again, though it's hard. I told the man I'm seeing now, Marcus, about what happened to me. I told him on our third date because I needed him to understand why I am the way I am, why I'm suspicious, why I have trust issues, why I need to know where the cameras are, need to control what's recorded, need to feel safe in ways most people take for granted. He listened. He didn't run. He said he understood, that we'd take things as slowly as I needed, that he'd never pressure me, never push me, never give me a reason to doubt his intentions. I want to believe him. I'm trying to believe him. But there's a part of me that will always wonder if the kind man bringing me tea is actually a monster waiting for me to let my guard down. I want to talk to everyone watching this who might be in a situation similar to what I went through. Maybe your partner is insistent about you taking medication or drinks they prepare. Maybe you're experiencing memory gaps or blackouts you can't explain. Maybe you're finding unexplained bruises, waking up in different clothes, feeling like time is missing from your life. Please, listen to me. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Your intuition is trying to protect you. Don't dismiss it. Don't explain it away. Don't trust someone just because you love them or because they seem kind or because you can't imagine they'd hurt you. I couldn't imagine it either. I was wrong. If you suspect you're being drugged, there are ways to find out. Don't actually consume whatever your partner is giving you. Pretend to take medication or drink, but dispose of it safely. Save samples. Get them tested. There are labs that will do toxicology screenings. Document everything, even if it seems insignificant. Write down dates, times, symptoms, anything unusual. If you suspect there are cameras in your home, look for them. They can be hidden in smoke detectors, alarm clocks, air vents, picture frames, anywhere really. But they exist. They're physical objects that can be found. You can also hire someone, a private investigator or security consultant, to sweep your home for recording devices. And if you find evidence that your partner is drugging you or recording you without consent, don't confront them directly. Get help first. Talk to the police. Talk to a lawyer. Talk to someone who can help you build a case and stay safe. Because confronting an abuser can be dangerous, especially when they realize their victim knows what's happening. You deserve safety. You deserve privacy. You deserve to exist in your own home, in your own body, without being violated. No one, not a spouse, not a partner, not anyone, has the right to drug you, record you, or exploit you. Ever. I also want to talk to the people who enabled Michael, the people who subscribed to his website, who paid to watch an unconscious woman, who requested specific camera angles and times. You knew something was wrong. You knew I wasn't aware I was being recorded. You knew no woman would consent to that. And you paid for it anyway. You participated in my abuse. You funded it. You encouraged it. I hope you live with that guilt for the rest of your lives. I hope you understand that you weren't just watching some fantasy, some victimless entertainment. You were watching a real woman being violated, a real person whose life was being destroyed while you got off on her unconsciousness. You're just as guilty as Michael. You're just as much a predator. And I hope someday you face consequences for what you did. To the families and friends of abusers, the people who say, "But he seemed so normal," or "I never would have suspected." Believe me, I understand. I lived with Michael for years and never suspected either. He was good at hiding what he was. Predators are. They're skilled at maintaining a facade, at seeming normal and kind, and trustworthy. But I need you to understand something. When someone you love is revealed to be a predator, when the evidence is overwhelming and clear, you don't get to make excuses for them. You don't get to say, "But he's such a good person otherwise," or "Maybe she's exaggerating," or "There must be some misunderstanding." You believe the victim. You accept the evidence. You hold the abuser accountable. Michael's family struggled with this. They wanted to believe he was innocent, that there was some explanation, that I was somehow lying or mistaken. But eventually, when they saw the evidence, when they had to face the reality of what he'd done, they accepted it. They apologized to me. They didn't make excuses. I appreciated that, even though it didn't change what happened. I'm sharing my story today because I want it to reach as many people as possible. Because if it can happen to me, a healthcare professional, someone who works with abuse victims regularly, someone who thought she knew all the warning signs, it can happen to anyone. Predators are everywhere. They're not strangers in dark alleys. They're husbands, boyfriends, partners, people we trust and love and let into our lives and homes. 18 months. That's how long Michael drugged me, recorded me, sold me. 18 months of my life stolen while I thought I was living a dream. Don't let someone steal your life. Don't let someone violate you in your own home, in your own body. Be vigilant. Be suspicious. Be safe. And if you've survived something like what I went through, please know you're not alone. There are resources, support groups, therapists who specialize in this kind of trauma. You can heal. It takes time, it takes work, but you can recover. You can rebuild your sense of safety and trust. You can have a life after this, a good life, a life where you're more than what was done to you. I'm Elena. I'm 29 years old. I'm a pediatric nurse in Seattle. I have friends who support me, a therapist who helps me heal, and a future that's mine again. Michael took 18 months from me, but he didn't take my strength. He didn't take my resilience. He didn't take my ability to survive and thrive despite what he did. I'm still here. I'm still fighting. And if you're going through something similar, you can survive too. You can make it through this nightmare. You can reclaim your life from the person who tried to destroy it. Thank you for listening to my story. Please share this video if you think it might help someone. Subscribe to this channel if you want to follow my journey of healing and advocacy. And comment below letting me know where you're watching from and if my story resonated with you. Stay safe. Trust your instincts. And remember, you deserve to live without fear, without violation, without someone stealing pieces of your life while you sleep. Always. No exceptions. This is Elena, signing off. To anyone out there living through a nightmare like mine, you're not alone. You're believed, you're valued, and you can survive this, I promise.